Welcome to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends, the podcast where we explore life, career, relationships, and pop culture through a Christian conservative perspective. Each episode, we dive into deep topics that matter most to us women, from navigating your career with grace and confidence to watering meaningful relationships grounded in faith. We're here to empower you to embrace your femininity and stand firm in your beliefs. We'll also tackle the latest in pop culture, discussing how they align or clash with our values. Let's uncover the truth and encourage each other to live boldly and authentically. So whether you're at home or on your commute, get ready for some fabulous conversations. Grab your teacup, pour yourself some tea. Come on, girlies, we're changing culture. The views expressed on this podcast are our own and do not reflect our employers. Enjoy! Welcome to Other Girlies in Cubicles. This series are for Christian girlies showing up in boardrooms, break rooms, and beige office chairs. We're living a set-apart life in a world that wants us to blend in. Let's be real, no one really talks about what it's like to be a Christian woman in the workspace. How do we carry our confidence in these spaces and we still want to thrive? Whether you're clocking in your 9 to 5 or dreaming of something more, this is your space to talk work, worth, and walking boldly in your calling. Because like Martin Luther said, the Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship. Your work matters and how you show up matters. And yes, we can still be set apart, even in cubicles. I am Mal, your gal pal.
I'm Hannah.
And we are changing culture and redeeming femininity. Welcome to the show. This is Those Are the Girls. If you are new here, this is an amazing podcast that you're absolutely going to love. And what we do here is we talk about pop culture, career, politics occasionally, and just everything in between from the Christian conservative perspective. And I'm super excited to have Hannah on this episode. As you can tell, I changed up the intro a little bit for those of you keen listeners. And we're going to be talking about femininity. And this is still part of the Other Girlies in Cubicles series, which is a series where I'm talking about how do we, as Christian conservative women, go present in the workplace? How do we remain feminine? I've talked about on the podcast a lot of times that, and you don't shoot the messenger. I personally think it's okay to wear dresses in corporate. You don't have to wear a pantsuit. I've said that before and people get a little iffy, but you can still do that. And there are feminine pantsuits if you are dressing for your type, which listen to episode 302 if you want to learn about that. But wearing dresses and putting some effort, wearing jewelry, putting some effort in and just showing your femininity, those type of things that we've talked about. And we're going to be talking more about, in this episode specifically, we're going to be talking about how to do that as well, how to express your femininity, what actually is femininity, and then we're going to be talking about how to do that in the workplace, and then also if you're an entrepreneur and things like that. Anyway, it's going to be a great episode. Let me tell you guys really quick about Hannah. Hannah, I should have asked how to pronounce your last name. It's pronounced
Brusven.
Okay, I probably could have guessed that. Is a leading voice in classical femininity, media analysis, the British royal family, and cultural commentary. As the creator, editor-in-chief of the Swish Magazine, Hannah has built a platform dedicated to exploring timeless elegance, faith, family, and the power of femininity in the modern world through quarterly print and digital editions and a growing media presence. With a deep understanding of media narratives in the royal family, Hannah provides insightful analysis rooted in her classical education that captivates audiences looking for a fresh counterculture perspective. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Mal. Thank you so much for having me. You just have a wonderful show, so I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you. I love your brand. I'm so glad we chatted and we are doing this because we were saying offline, I was looking at that. I'm like, okay, this is right up my style or right up my alley. It's also my style. It's right up my alley. Some of the topics, I had to say this really quick. I shared it a couple days ago. I saw you had an article on the magazine about, are we wearing sweats too much or something like that? And I was like, absolutely, we are as a society. Everybody wears sweats everywhere. I do my best not to wear sweats when I leave the house. Honestly, I can't think of the last time I did wear sweats other than if I was at home and just lounging. But so it's a great magazine and I'm just really excited for us to get into the discussion today. So let's talk a little bit about the business side of everything, can you actually first tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to start the magazine and the brand and all that stuff?
Absolutely. It's evolved over time too, which has been really fun to see. It originally started back in 2018 when I was in college. I was a sophomore in college and I went to a classical college.
Oh,
And everyone, of course, was very focused on uh, being thoughtful and intellectual. But I felt that there was this missing component when it came to the women sometimes. And I also went to a state school, so I have a very complicated collegiate background. But when it came to college life,
really
yeah.
quick, what is the classical college? Like, what's the difference between a classical college and a regular college?
So there's this interesting rising up of colleges that's happening right now where it's not necessarily focused on like trades, but it's focused on liberal arts. So I got a liberal arts degree, a culture and liberal arts degree, but it's where you are diving into the great books, you're studying historical classical figures. You're basically studying the way that the founding fathers did.
I was
which
gonna
is kind of
say.
a because I was classically educated as well since I was in kindergarten, which is this really interesting burgeoning alternative sort of original type of education, which is how everybody was educated up until the 1700s, which is the approach that we are forming the whole person, not what they know. And they do that through studying the great books, classical languages. They say training the virtues, basically helping you understand what is true, good, and beautiful instead of just the facts that you should know, which is something I'm very passionate about with classical education.
Yeah, I like that.
So,
okay, sorry, continue.
No, it's a great question, though. Really good question. So I was at that school. I ended up going part-time at a state school as well because I wanted to learn more about business and marketing, and that's where my passion was. As I looked around, though, I realized that there were so many women who were so excited about learning more. They were excited about their academics, but the way that they carried themselves didn't reflect those things that they believed and that they loved. No hate on my Christian sisters who were studying hard, but I did feel that sometimes things could veer into the frumpy world because they were so focused on their intellect. And I think that's really important to be thoughtful, but what we wear, I believe, is a language. It says something about ourselves, and there wasn't a lot of guidance around that. At the same time, I was so excited about and had always loved Audrey Hepburn and Princess Catherine. And so I just started writing online and sharing my thoughts. And I started a little blog, and, you know, it was kind of my little side hobby at the time. And I ended up going into the workforce after I graduated, and I'm going to share a lot about that. I haven't really spoken publicly about any of that at this point. So I'm excited to share that with you. But I got a lot of experience. And then 2 years ago, now, the end of 2 years ago, 2024, I ended up stepping away because I'd always wanted to do this. This was my goal. This was my dream. And I ended up pursuing it full time. And here we are. I started the digital version first. So we just did articles online, and then I rolled out the print and the digital quarterly editions. So now that's something that people are looking forward to every quarter, and the message is growing, and really this different perspective on classical femininity, I think, is resonating with a lot of people.
I love that. And I want to comment about what you said about the frumpiness. And I had Carla on, and she is the founder of Culture of Life. This was maybe like 2 years ago. And she said something that I think about all the time. She said, like, frumpiness is not like a virtue. Like, it doesn't make you more virtuous to God. And I think sometimes, like what you said, we think that, I don't want to describe a frumpy clothes, but we all know what I'm talking about. Like, we think that frumpiness kind of makes us a little bit more pure, and we're not being gaudy. And I think there is a fine line. Obviously, we know we're Christians. Everyone listening here might not be a Christian, but you know where the line is when it comes to being too much. But I do think sometimes it's okay for us to put an effort into how we appear, like our appearance in everyday world.
Yeah, and I think that was a big light bulb for me when I realized that actually you're respecting and honoring other people around you
Yeah.
when you do care about what you look like. It's not about you. And if it is about you, that's a heart moment. It's time to think about that. But ultimately, it's about thinking about others when you care about how you look yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I love, and this is your full time, and I love that. That's exciting. Wow.
My dad and I, or he started a business a couple years ago, so I do help him on the side a little bit of that, and I've got all kinds of little projects. But this is my ultimate goal, and this is what I mainly do.
Yeah.
So
it's right there with you, podcasting wise.
Yes.
Okay, let's see here. Now, growing up, so this has been your dream to have a magazine. Growing up, I'm assuming you read a lot of magazines. Did you ever want to work for like Teen Vogue and thinking of a Elle or places like that?
Well, yes, I always loved movies like 13 Going on 30, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think we grew up in this generation of really idolizing the magazine industry, and that was like what it meant to be an ultimate woman. Like you've
Yeah.
got outfits and the shoes, and you work for a magazine. And so I think I always had that in the back of my mind as kind of the ultimate dream. But as I got older and started looking at the actual magazines, I've got one right here. I just did a whole little reel on this. It is astonishing what's actually in these. Not to mention 70% of them are advertising, so it's kind of useless
Yeah.
to some extent. And so I did really want to do that. I love business, I love marketing. I want to do something that was in the world of feminine interests. However, I think I got to that place and I realized that that was not what I wanted it to be, to work in those industries. And so I ended up studying journalism for a little while. That is a whole nother podcast we could do.
I bet.
Just actually being in the trenches, studying journalism. I'll tell you a couple things. They put a picture of Trump on the first day of school on the screen and said, "This is the biggest liar in the history of the world. If you don't agree with this, then you are not in the right class."
Oh, wow.
I was astonished. And then the
Wow.
next slide was saying, "CNN is the gold standard of this classroom. If you disagree, then we're going to have some problems." I was like, this is journalism school? Are you
Wow.
serious? I don't care. I don't agree with everything Trump has to say. I don't agree with a lot of people on what everything they have to say. But no matter who it is that you're putting on a screen and saying that that is, the gold standard, that's a problem. And so
Yeah. And
I
journalism
was
is supposed
really
to be
shocked by that.
objective too. Like you're not supposed to have, you're not supposed to go in with biases. Wow. I
Yeah.
should be more I'm shocked, but I guess I should be more shocked, but I'm also kind of like not shocked.
Yeah, it's amazing how it really is it's very manipulative. And
Yeah.
it was not a good environment. So I ended up not doing that and went into more of the marketing and business world because that's where my heart was anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I did go to journalism school for a little bit and got those experiences because it definitely shaped my understanding of media too.
Yeah. And I mean, even though, you're not necessarily a journalist, I'm sure you use those same skills in some of the articles and it probably helps you with doing commentary and things like that too.
It's amazing how looking back on my life, I'm sure for everyone, we can look back on our lives and see all these little moments that didn't work out that ended up being a contributing factor to something even better.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for me. I thought I was going down this path, ended up realizing that was not what was for me, but it was a blessing ultimately in the long run. So
Yeah.
if something's not working out for you and you feel like you're at an end road, there's probably some little moment that you've learned from that you're going to use later. And you just stick it in your back pocket and just wait to see when you need to use it.
Yeah. I'm holding on to that too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Can you tell us a little bit about how did it get started? You had this goal, you had this dream, and then what happened from there?
Yeah, with the magazine.
Yes.
So I originally started looking at alternative women's media outlets, and there's some out there. I think we all know of the EVs, the conservators, and things like that. And I really appreciated what they're doing. Brittany Martinez is a mutual friend of mine, and she's done a really great job of building out this whole platform.
Mhm.
But there was still something missing. So I started reading through some of the comments about the articles that I was seeing out there that were these alternatives. And ultimately, there was nothing out there that really spoke to shaping the whole woman. What it means to be a virtuous woman. That's a big word to use to say virtuous woman. But actually, what does it mean to actually address the biggest challenges and the biggest questions about femininity these days, other than just the aesthetic? Because there's a lot of performative femininity out there, and some of us don't even know what a woman is here on planet Earth, which is ridiculous. So I have taken the approach that we know what a woman is. That's pretty basic. But what does it mean to be a strong woman who is rooted in something that's bigger than ourselves? So that's kind of the approach with every one of our articles, everything that we put out, really talking about what it means to form the entire woman, our spirit, our soul, our physical, everything about us to really be centered on what is true, good, and beautiful. And those are Platonic ideals. As a classical person, that is something that I've studied since I was very young. That those are the things that are transcendent, what is true, good, and beautiful. And so how do we recognize and cultivate those things in womanhood? So I felt like there were a lot of roots in that, and that's what I started pursuing, what I started writing about. And, there's a million different people out there online that are talking. And so I started doing that. I started talking about it on YouTube. That grew very, very quickly, but I wanted something bigger than that. And so I just started doing a lot of research on magazines, modern magazines, and I was reading about this rise of print magazines coming back, which was really surprising to me.
I was about to say, now is the time to get into magazines. I think magazines are coming back. I really do.
Oh, yeah, they 100% are. And the data is showing that it's luxury, high quality magazines that are coming back because everybody loves, creating digital content or very I don't want to use the word cheap, but I'm looking at the quality of this Elle magazine. I mean, this could be thrown out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But what about something that is coffee table
I was just about to
ready,
say
that is very beautiful, something that you can collect all of them. So that's what we've done with the Swish. I mean, you can just see I feel like I'm doing an ad now, Mal. You can see the quality now on this versus this. Like, what's going on here? But that was my goal, was to create something that really was a collectible item, I guess. And so I just started researching. I found an editor-in-chief named Kate Kirby, who runs one of the biggest parenting magazines and one of the biggest wedding magazines, Tool Magazine and Mini Magazine. So I reached out to her. She's been mentoring me on this and given me a lot of insights. And, we're changing up the fulfillment process constantly and bringing it home and fixing things. It's hard. It's definitely hard.
I can imagine.
But I'm so grateful that it's actually resonating with people.
Wow. Love that. Love that so much. Let's talk about classical femininity. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, classical femininity is the preservation and reflection of truth, goodness, and beauty in womanhood, as opposed to the ultra independent and non-committal femininity that our modern world loves.
Love that. That's a great, succinct definition. And I think that in general, everyone listening, because you mentioned this earlier, the idea of femininity and womanhood, all of that is just kind of, now they're just kind of words you say. And like, I even find myself sometimes using these words and like, okay, did I mean to use that word? And, doing that. So I think having an absolute definition for that is really good and it's important. And it's honestly, classical femininity is truly needed in our society. I think it's really lacking.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. And I also want to make the distinction between classic femininity and classical femininity.
Okay, yes.
People will often, mix the two. Yeah. Classic femininity is often an aesthetic. You dress like Audrey Hepburn, you wear the red lips, you go make cookies. That's more classic femininity that you'll find on Pinterest. Classical femininity is that formation of the whole person and what it means to have your values rooted in something bigger than yourself. And oftentimes there's an overlap. We end up kind of dressing more classically and having those same things because I think often people like the aesthetic of that, as they should, but I think that it's something much more rooted and something much deeper that isn't swayed by all the aesthetics. That's the problem I have now with the trad wife trend, because many times women hopped on that because they liked the idea of wearing a floral dress and baking at home, and they like the idea of traditional gender roles, but they don't understand the deeper reason of why those things matter. And the next time a trend came around, I think the mob wife, whatever that was.
Mob boss wife, yes.
That's what it was. That trend came around next, and there they all go. All the TikTok girls are off, smudging their eyeliner and wearing a fur coat because that's the next thing. So it's like, let's separate the idea of what it means to be feminine from a TikTok micro trend that is just so constant these days.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, I like that you made that distinction because I mean that's what I've been doing this whole episode, interchanging them. But I really like that distinction, especially I just keep going back to the virtue part. I just keep thinking about that because I think that whenever, putting it on myself and like all of us listening, whenever we are thinking about this, whenever we're thinking about classical femininity, I think the virtue thing is something that we absolutely, it's outside of the aesthetics, it's outside how we're doing our hair, outside of our clothes, it's our heart. And I think that is definitely more important. It's the most important thing when you're entering any room, when you're with your friends, when you're with your family, when you're at church. It's your heart that's the most important part.
It is, but there's also a physical element. It's kind of like, you talk about in James, what is faith without works?
Yeah.
And that balance, like we believe these things and we know these things to be true, but also the way that we carry ourselves and display ourselves is a reflection of those things. It's like I did a reel yesterday, or a post yesterday, just about different classical femininity styles, because we're rooted in something. There actually is an ability to have different aesthetics within it, but they're all kind of tied back to one thing that is reflecting what is true, good, and beautiful. And so it actually, there's way more freedom in that, but it doesn't mean that, oh, we're virtuous women, we're gonna wear our Crocs and our pajama pants all the time because that's what we know that we're good women. Well, actually, we are glorifying God and we are respecting ourselves and others by caring about what we wear.
Oh, love that. Let's talk a little bit transition now. We'll get back to the magazine, I think, but let's transition now to your experience in, you were telling me previously about a male dominated field, and you were in a real people job. That's what I call them. Like my job outside of the podcast is I call it a real people job. And you were talking to me about that, and like let's kind of get into that. How was that experience? Are you glad you work for yourself now, technically? I could probably answer that for you.
Oh man, I have not spoken publicly about this much at all. And I worked as the executive producer for a conservative broadcasting company for 5 years. And I ended up in that position. It's kind of a long story, but Swish actually kind of got me that job originally because I was writing. I wanted to get some more experience. I reached out to somebody. They hired me. They had a sister company who was in the broadcasting company. I started out in the, very low level marketing world. I ended up just sticking around, climbing my way through the top. And then I ended up on the executive team of this. And this was a 1 million plus YouTube channel, 100,000 plus followers on Instagram, like very, very big platform. I don't know that I'm going to name them just for my own.
No, you shouldn't. Nosy would like to hear it offline, but like you don't have to ever. Like, don't feel pressure to name them.
Yeah. And so I found myself, at boardroom tables as the only woman. I was like 23 years old.
Oh wow, at
23. Years old, like very, very young. I think I proved myself pretty well because I was a very hard worker, and I'll get into some of that. But there were a lot of times where I looked around, I thought, my goodness, I'm the only girl. And on the one hand, I was like, I am so proud of myself. I have done it. Look at me go. But on the other hand, I was like, how am I supposed to do this? Oh my gosh. I remember one time, I don't think I've ever told this story, but I was in front of all these men. And by the way, I led a team of like 26 people. And I think there was like 1 or 2 other women that were there by the time that I left. And I'm like standing in front of them all. I love my outfit. Well, my boss pulled me aside afterwards. He goes, check your shirt. I had been standing there with something went wrong. And my bra was
oh my God.
I just was humiliated beyond belief. Like, but that's something that you have to think about. Men don't have to think about. And when you're leading everyone, I was absolutely humiliated. God. But it was things like that I had to really realize, okay, you can't have the exact same, you can't act the exact same as these men around you. There is something special to being a woman and how you carry yourself. And so I'd kind of gone through a bit of a feminist phase. I talk about this often in my origin story. When I was in college, I lived in the UK for a summer, and, they are generally more progressive over there. And I was studying femininity and feminism, and I ended up coming home and telling my family that women could be, pastors, and that I could do, and maybe you believe that, but for me, that I don't personally believe that now, but I was very, very egalitarian and didn't see any difference between men and women. And that was kind of the place that I came in from when I started working. And I think God refined my heart through working in those positions around other men, because I had to realize that, you know what, you are different and you can't just grit your teeth and act like this. And it was successful. I think I was very grateful for what I was able to contribute in the work that we did. And we went on tour with President Trump and Donald Trump Jr. and Kayleigh McEnany and Nash D'Souza and like these big name conservative groups. And I was, I would find myself in these, I remember I was in New York City once in a penthouse with all of these very, very top tier conservative influencers. And then suddenly someone came over to me and they're like, well, we're all a part of Andrew Tate's team. And I'm sitting there thinking, I did not know that. Why am I here with all of Andrew Tate's team? And I was like, getting out of here. That's a whole nother conversation. But just, at these really influential meetings and these groups that I would have never found myself in if I hadn't worked really hard, put myself out there, and I think, really put my heart and soul into it. But at the same time, I think the Lord was refining my heart as to what it meant to be a woman in the workplace and to be a strong-willed woman, as I very much am. And now, I'm leading my own company. I'm leading this movement of women who are embracing classical femininity. And I think there's a lot of things that I kind of had to learn going through that as well.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So anyone... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry if that was too much detail.
No. I appreciate that. Honestly, tell as much as you want. I love information. Yeah. What I wanted to say was so you're in this high pressure male dominated job. Can you talk a little bit about, and you touched on it a little bit about, as if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I want to go into this, but I want to make sure that I am not going in as a feminist. Because I think sometimes those of us, there are people who are, like, I would consider myself, I'm definitely a strong-willed person. I'm loud and I have opinions and I'm going to share my opinions. And I even think sometimes I don't want to come at things as like too harsh, but I also don't want to stifle who God has made me to be. And everybody has different personalities. So do you have any advice for girls listening who feel as if they're kind of strong-willed and they want to go higher up in their career? Eventually, so that's the other thing too. I think both of us, eventually, part of the reason why we would like to be entrepreneurs is so we can have a family and be more flexible. So, and I feel like that part's never talked about. They just make it seem like you either want to be a girl boss or you just want to sit at home, and it's like, or maybe you want to kind of mesh both. Anyway, sorry, I'm like asking a lot of questions within this question, but like girl who is like us, can you talk to her a little bit?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons I started Swish early on was that I wanted to create something by the time that I had kids that I could have passive income and have something of my own that I could have an outlet for. And I'm so grateful to be at that point where it is something where I'm able to pay myself and make money from it. And it's something that I really, really enjoy and can do. And as far as advice, I think oftentimes when we think about femininity, we emphasize the softer side, as it should be. We are the softer gender. I hate using that word, but you know what I mean. However, that doesn't mean that you don't have a strong backbone. You can have a strong backbone and a soft heart. And I think that's the balance that I've really come to find that has been really helpful and important for me in decision making. It doesn't mean that you embrace your femininity and you aren't a decision maker, or you don't have opinions, or that you don't have strong will, but you have your own boundaries, you have things that you are passionate about. And so when it comes to being in the workplace, one thing that I had to get over was the idea that because I was the woman, I was often asked to do some of the event planning, to give my opinion on the more feminine things, the softer things, the catering, pick out the food. And initially I was like, hey, you're just doing that because I'm a woman. I know that it's because I'm a woman. And I was a little bit annoyed by that. Yeah. But what I realized was, you know what? These men actually are noticing in me something that is God-given. That is my softer side, that I do have an ability as a woman to beautify, because ultimately women are beautifiers. And I had a change of heart and realized I'm very grateful that they see that in me, that is a quality that I possess, that is something that I can contribute. So instead of poo-pooing that and getting annoyed when they would ask me to plan something, I just started leaning into it and figuring out all the ways that I could serve the people around me, the ways that I could love my coworkers, the way that I could beautify the environment, and even little things like thinking about our customers' experiences. Obviously, everybody's thinking about that all day, but how can I beautify what they're experiencing? And I do think that there is something special that women can contribute when it comes to the business world and having that empathy that men don't always have for the customer, understanding the end goal. Obviously, every industry is different. Everybody has a different perspective and a different need when it comes to inventory and what they're actually creating. But I do think that when I finally realized my role as a beautifier and how that could extend to the office too, that was really, really a moment of peace for me because I wasn't constantly fighting who I am as a woman.
Wow. So that is I needed to hear that. That's something that I kind of struggle with too in my real people job. There was an incident where we need to decorate something and then we needed someone greeting people. And like, that's not my job, but we needed someone to do it. And I'm the only woman in the office. And I remember thinking, I'm just greeting because they know I have a feminine blah, 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 blah. And I felt a little bit like they're making me do this because of I'm a woman, but you're right. Like that's part of it, I'm sure, is because I'm a woman, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. I am great. I have great customer service. So that is partially why too. And I think part of that is being a woman. Wow. That's good. I like that. The beautifying. And then even decorating. Every time anybody has any question about something in the office, a sex Mallory.
I think there's so many women that get peeved when they're asked, and that's kind of like you and I, like how we used to be. But once you take it as a compliment and be like, yes, I am a woman, I'm happy to help you, I love to serve you, how can I help you? Like, not in a passive way, but truly, like, where can I help beautify our surroundings? It becomes fun and exciting and engaging, and it doesn't have to be some moment of frustration anymore.
Right.
And I think culturally we do that all the time. I mean, look at the way that women are portrayed. Anybody who cares about the way that they look or who has a softer side is often demeaned, and that's not at all how it should be.
Sharpay Evans, justice for Sharpay Evans. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. Actually, maybe I don't. We kind of covered everything. This isn't on here, but I just had this thought.
Yeah.
Practical. Let's talk about clothing and clothing styles. What are some ways that you think that women can dress classically feminine / classic femininity? However, the right way to say it. What are the ways you think someone can do that? Because we did talk about how your physical appearance expresses your virtue and everything. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So one of the first things I started doing when I started the Swish was studying elegance. I wanted to know, okay, there's got to be a science to this. How is Princess Catherine always so put together? Why did Audrey Hepburn become an icon of femininity and has had a style that has endured for decades? Okay, how are they doing this? So I started studying, I started reading all these books about it. And what I found in this book called, and I quote him in every single interview I do because I love his book, Matthew E. May wrote a book called In Pursuit of Elegance, Why the Best Things of Something Missing. So I started reading this book and I initially thought, oh, it'll be about, cute styles and elegance. No, it's actually about Toyota, believe it or not. Wow. And I'm reading this book. I'm like, oh my gosh, should I finish this? Why am I reading this? But okay, I'll just keep going. And what he analyzed through studying Toyota was that there are innate principles of elegance that can be applied to anything in the world to make it elegant. And he came up with 4 things. He calls them the 4 S's: symmetry, subtraction, sustainability, and seduction. I have used these in pretty much every approach that I've had towards wanting to be elegant because I read this book and tried to put it through the perspective of femininity and womanhood, and it fit masterfully. So first, symmetry. Your inward and your outward are aligned. So the things that you believe and the things that you say and the way that you present yourself are all symmetrical. So you can see this through the way that we carry ourselves, but also the things that we wear. So finding styles that are more symmetrical. Maybe you have an A-line, maybe it's color palettes, making sure that's symmetrical to who you are, what your color palette is, having the right cuts and tailoring. That's something that has been lost on our generation is tailoring. So making sure that you have a fit that actually fits you and that it's not just trending. We stay away from trends generally at the Swish, but there are certain things that you can find that are really helpful to you. So making sure that it's not just a trend that you're following, but that it's actually something that works for you. So that would be the first thing with symmetry. Then there's subtraction. And, we talk a lot about modesty often. At least I grew up in purity culture.
Yes,
so
yeah.
that was something that was a big hot topic. I generally don't really use the word modesty. I also don't generally use the word feminism because they're very weighted words. But when it comes to the elegance principle of subtraction, this is where I actually see it as a strategy. So where can I actually think about what I'm wearing and subtract something to make it more interesting? So that means if you have a dress that maybe it's long sleeve and it's all the way to the ground, well, maybe I could remove one sleeve. Maybe I could have a slit. Maybe if it's a little bit lower here, I keep the length on the skirt and on my sleeves. So where can you play with that visually when it comes to subtraction, but also in subtracting what we have to say? So that means maybe not talking all the time, but being strategic about when you're giving input, what you're actually giving input about, being artful in the art of rhetoric, understanding when you should subtract your presence, all those little things when it comes to being masterful. Even when you're decorating a house, like white space, negative space, that subtraction actually is powerful. So that's the elegant principle of subtraction. Sustainability, that doesn't necessarily mean Green New Deal stuff and all of that. It just means, what are you investing in that is timeless? Thank you. Timeless, that is going to last for a very, very long time. So this is where family heirlooms come into play, legacies. These are timeless styles like Grace Kelly's looks. Those will forever be iconic because they are timeless. So what can you work in your life on that is going to last for generations? What are you wearing that is reflecting things that tell a story? How can you align yourself with something bigger than yourself? Overall, think about how can whatever you're doing or carrying yourself with, how is that sustainable? And then there's seduction. And that word often has something to do with promiscuity. I don't think of it that way. And I've for years tried to think of another S word that could exhibit these things, but that was Matthew's word. So what I mean by that, though, and what he meant by that is have something interesting about you. What is your humor like? What is something that you're interested in that's kind of fun? Something that makes you set apart from everyone else. So that kind of in the way that you carry yourself, you can think about those things, but also in the things that you wear. Maybe there's a really fun pattern for a purse that you're carrying around that's a little different in the style. Maybe you have a fun brooch. Those are coming back.
Yeah.
Something that's a little bit quirky. The whole thing doesn't have to be quirky, but maybe there's something that is reflective of your personal style that's a little detail that makes you stand apart. So when I look at that holistically with the 4S's, that really is a great example of how to embrace elegance that I think is a different approach than what mainstream media narratives often talk about for embracing femininity.
I love these conversations. I really do. I want to have more of these type of conversations on the podcast, but it's just sometimes like, who do I talk to? I love this. I think this is so like in my head. I'm like, okay, I want to do all these things because I do. I think I had like I was actually talking to one of my friends about this. I have like a style. Like I feel like you can see an outfit and be like, oh, that's something Mallory would wear, but I feel like I don't have like a signature. I don't know. But I've been thinking about that, especially because I want to start getting a capsule wardrobe. I heard that on another podcast. So I want to start getting like pieces that are a little bit more expensive, but that are going to last longer. And that's something that I've been thinking about. I'm doing some stuff with my health. So I want to do that first and then look more into that. So like these type of questions or these type of things that you said are like some of the questions I want to ask myself, especially when you said the heirloom things. I definitely in the future, I pray to God I have kids. And obviously I want my daughters to take over the podcast, but I also would like to pass down some clothes to them, There's other things too that are classic and classy that I would want them to to enjoy. My dad started getting me for Valentine's Day. My dad still gets me stuff. He started getting me like jewelry, and in my head I'm like, okay, that's the stuff I'll pass down to my kids, and it's all really beautiful, classy pieces. I honestly don't know where he gets it, but it's really nice, like classy jewelry that I only wear for like special occasions. So it's like stuff like that is what you were saying. That's what it made me think of. Just like, yeah, I love it.
Exactly. And the thing I'll say about signature style is that we often hear messaging as women that one day we are going to wake up and be our true self. We just need to fly on a plane, go to a yoga retreat, and somewhere deep inside of us, who we are is going to come out. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. It's little decisions that are made over and over again. Allie Beth Stuckey has this quote that has stuck with me for years. Do the next right thing faithfully with excellence to the glory of God. When you do that over and over and over again, you are going to create a brand for, I hate to use the word brand, a signature style for yourself that is reflective of who you are and what you believe in a way that you could not do if you suddenly woke up one morning and decided that you wanted to be cowgirl core or whatever it is. There's something so much deeper to what you say about yourself and your signature style than that. So it takes time, it takes investment, but it's, again, just choosing those right things over and over again that are going to formulate what you love and how you carry yourself.
Yeah, wow, I love that. And I'm definitely have to listen to this episode again.
Good.
Okay, let's see here. Kind of going back to the magazine. So you're working this job at this company. When did you say, this is it? I'm doing it. I'm following my dream.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how.
And you can share as much as you want. Don't feel pressure.
Yeah, no, well, there were discussions early on and kind of there at the end about bringing the Swish under the major brand. Because that was something that I'd always wanted. And this is where I really wanted to retain control for myself on it. And I now say that I understand what like the Brett Coopers of the world went through, because it is so important to me to own my own content.
Me
and that
too,
was
girl.
not something that I was going to be able to do if I allowed for them to basically bring Swish under their wing. And so I decided, and I basically was given the decision that I either could never do Swish again, or I had to basically give up ownership of it. And I kind of, stuck my, or drew a line in the sand and decided, you know what, Lord, this is what I think you've called me to do. And I think that I can, probably do a lot more on my own than putting it under this other brand. And so much prayer and advice from others went into this. And I just decided May of last year to step away and figure out how to do this myself. And I could not tell you, Mal, how fulfilling it is now to get emails, DMs, comments from people every single day who feel like they have resonated so deeply with this problem in our culture of femininity being performative, but finding this solution through classical femininity and understanding that actually pursuing a virtuous, strong character is really what's going to be lasting and really going to be influential, and something that they've found the Swish to be a solution for them. So I could not be more grateful or excited about what we're doing in the future and where this is going and how we're providing this alternative, even interestingly, an alternative for conservative women. And I'll just say, we are pretty apolitical in the things that we do and the things that we share, because honestly, that is a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
We are not a conservative women's magazine. We are a classical femininity magazine. And so there are tons of different perspectives on things. And I think that that's important. We had a article, one of our last articles in this magazine. Yeah, it's called The Death of Dialogue. And it was all about how we've lost this important art of being able to disagree well. Mm-hmm. And so it's things like that I do want to be able to speak about, but we don't get into foreign policy. We don't get into all of these things, because I think that we as women are looking for something that may not have that as a part of the table of contents.
I'm telling you, when I say we talk about politics, it is mainly abortion, and technically abortion mm-hmm. isn't even politics, that's human rights, but it's another conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes I get fatigued of like politics. Like sometimes it's just like we need a break. And I don't think we're supposed to know. I don't think we were created to know everything all the time, especially things that are going on in other countries. I don't think we're supposed to sit here and be pondering it forever. I mean, obviously care and have compassion, but no, you're right. Sometimes there'll be episodes or there'll be like a month or something where I won't touch anything political. It'll just be like random TikTok stuff that I saw, because it's just like sometimes you need that escapism. That's the word I was looking for. Sometimes you need escapism.
Yeah, exactly. And I think modern women's media is maybe too much escapism, where it ends up being trendy and gossipy,
Shallow.
and it's very shallow, and it ends up forming these identities of these young women who think that that's what it means to be a woman. But that could not be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And so our hope is that the Swish will provide an alternative to help young women be thoughtful and confident in a way that isn't rooted in trends or performative actions.
Yeah, love it. If anyone is listening, they want to start their own magazine, a lip gloss brand, clothing line, what advice do you have for them?
Well, first of all, do it. There is nothing stopping you. The second thing I'd say is go find someone in the industry that you would want to be emulating. Then go figure out who is around them in their circles, who are they listening to, and go find a mentor who can get you to that place. One thing I'll say, that working at the broadcasting company, the president of the company was a huge mentor to me. He changed my life in so many ways. I'm so grateful for him. And he has been one of the biggest champions for me. I needed that. And so, as much as you can find someone who can mentor you, do that. Another great piece of advice I was given early on is that simply ask for advice. People love giving advice. So if you are wanting to start a lip gloss brand, go to your local networking events, see who knows who, or just put it out there and say, hey, I'm looking for advice. Or shoot your shot, go to someone big and say, hey, how can you advise me on what I'm trying to do here? Because they would absolutely love it. As much as you can, you're going to have to put yourself out there. I think that's the hardest part of all of it. But once you've done that, you can get connected with people that really can guide you to where you want to go. And so I'm grateful that I have a natural ambition, I suppose, to go and do those things. And I know that that's challenging for people. So that might be the hardest part of it all, though, is putting yourself out there and finding the right people who can direct you in the right place.
Great. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, man. I could talk about all of these things all day. There's so much to it. When it comes to femininity. And like I said, I don't really mention the word feminism because I think that's weighted on a lot of levels. We do touch on those things, but I hope to offer a differing perspective on what that looks like instead of the trad wife or the boss babe debate. We have our autumn edition that's coming out end of September.
Yes.
Yeah, September 24th. And it's funny to me, we haven't even officially pre-launched the pre-orders yet, and I put it somewhere hidden on the website yesterday, and people are already purchasing it. I'm just amazed that people are so excited about this already. So it's going to go on pre-order here next week, and then pre-order at the moment is going to end September 1st. We may extend it based off of how much inventory and interest we have. So if you would love to check that out, you can go to theswishmagazine.com. It's in digital and print, and we also have 2 weekly articles. So I am sure, Mal, that your listeners have some wonderful things to contribute to. So if they are wanting to write, if they are wanting to get started in the publishing world, I would love to have them pitch to me. They're welcome to email me at hello@theswishcompany.com, and that can get directed to me, as well as we have a writer's page at the bottom of theswishmagazine.com, and you can pitch your idea and maybe be featured in one of those 2 articles every week.
Ooh, so that's exciting. Really quick, do you know Lizzie? She does color analysis. She's an Indian woman.
I don't know her personally.
Okay, I want to connect you guys because I think you guys have a very similar. She does like color analysis, and she also does a course on learning like your style and like what you're supposed to dress for your silhouette and things like that. Remind me, I want to connect you guys because something you said that made me think of her. That's what I was looking for, and now I can't even remember.
Yeah.
But I'll message you. Something you said, I was like, oh, that reminded me of Lizzie. Anyway, I'll message you offline. But I'll make sure I link all of the how to get the magazine and how to view the articles, and then I'll put your email for people who want to submit an article as well.
Thank you.
I think I had one more question. How do you choose covers for your magazine?
Oh my goodness. I just had a meeting about this week. The cover is the hardest part of the entire magazine.
I bet,
and right
because
now,
it's like, it has to be it.
And the harder part too is as you like grow, this was our original edition, you want them all to match to some extent.
Yeah.
And right now we're so small, we license a lot of our photos. So for our winter edition, we are playing with some other ideas. But right now, that's been the hardest thing because you're just trying to find images you can purchase that will reflect the spirit of the magazine that also match the other edition. We also have a lot of photography that we add ourselves and things like that. For these two, they've both been ones that we've found and licensed that are
On brand.
reflective of what we want it to look like, but also high quality, because it's hard to find images that are something that are good and embody what we want.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because the ones I've seen, I really do like the images. And in my head, I mean, even when it just, the podcast making, like, especially nowadays, you have to do something that's like really interesting. You have to have an interesting title. You have to have this, you have to have that. So I was just curious how you guys go about it. Because I like that. And in the future, are you thinking of doing kind of like what Evie does, like have a person of the year or something like that? Or
we'll see. I am really excited about the many directions that the Swish is and could go in. We've done a couple features like this. So we had Aurelia Bicart featured in our summer edition. So I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's a really wonderful influencer. She's got over 100,000 followers who she's really leading women out of hookup culture and out of all the detriments of modern feminism to help them embrace elegance, help them embrace their faith. And so she's been a really great resource. She just turned 24. She's very young. Wow. She started doing this when she got out of college or was in college, and she's incredible. So we featured her in that. We featured a big brand called Maison Bleu, which is an antique French brand, in our first edition. And then we've got all kinds of fun features coming up.
Cool.
In our next editions, but that's kind of, we'll see. Maybe we'll have a person of the year. My vision too is just to really give women more resources as much as possible to learn how to embrace classical femininity. So instead of taking the typical magazine approach of, getting more media based, I would love to get more education based. So women can go deeper and find connections too. Cause I could talk all day about all this, but I think, at least for myself, I felt very alone in wanting to pursue classical femininity and things that were more intellectual and the softer side, where the whole world was telling me that I needed to go out there and wear my stilettos and stomp around. So I was very lost. And I think there's so many women that will DM me and I'm like, can you guys just talk to each other? You guys would be such good friends. Like, you guys need each other. So that's kind of the direction we're going in more and more, is creating a community around it for people to build friendships and learn more about how to embrace classical femininity every day.
Cool. Well, let me know any way that the podcast can help. If you do meetups, I can share them with my community, send out email, whatever. Just let me know. I love what I've seen so far.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And if people want to connect with you, what is the way they can connect?
Well, we are on Instagram at the Swish Magazine. You can follow us there, DM. I'd love to hear from you. You can also email me at hannah@theswishcompany.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts or what you are thinking about. That's always something I'm thankful for, is when people say, oh, I was thinking about this topic. Have you had a writer cover this yet? Or anything like that. So always let me know what's on your mind there.
Okay. Thank you. And everyone, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with your friends. This has been one of my favorites of the year. Seriously, I love this topic. I really want to connect you and Lizzie, because you guys were saying some very similar things. Maybe you guys could even do a collab or something. I don't know, but I am so grateful that you came on. Let me know if there's anything I could do to help get the magazine out and get the word out and everything. And everyone listening, like I said, share with your friends and let us know in the comments if you learned something, and let us know if, when we were having the conversation about classic femininity and classical femininity, what that made you think of. The trad lifestyle aesthetic, are you pro that, against that? Sorry y'all. Comment. Thank God the episode's over. Comment, let us know, share. Have a good day, night, evening. However, wherever you're listening.